And CBS News senior White House political correspondent Ed O'Keefe joining us back in now. And jump into this thing, Ed, because a lot of people feeling, wow, that was fast.
Yeah, but you know, I think I can speak for our Anthony Salvanto, who had said that, you know, based on the fact that your state is so great about letting people know who had been turning in ballots, and the fact that there was an overwhelming margin of Democrats doing so, signaled that, you know, it was likely that just math would not allow a Republican to get by the governor. That plus the, you know, reams of polling that had been released really in the last 2 weeks or so that showed him pulling away from yes, I think was enough. And then, of course, just seeing the data tonight, I mean, at this point, checking the latest numbers, it's winning essentially 67 to 33%, even in California, no matter where it is. That's what we call a blowout. And he's certainly pulling that off tonight by convincing enough California voters to vote no. And I find it interesting. I'm just peeking into the county-by-county results. There in San Francisco, it's not Larry Elder who is the top choice on question 2. It's that Kevin Paffrath, the YouTube star, the only other real Democrat in this race, who was pulling off a plurality of the vote, at least in San Francisco County, which I suppose speaks to that corner of the state. So, you know, perhaps status quo maintained. No surprise that a Democratic governor would prevail in an overwhelmingly Democratic state. But at the same time, the fact that you saw a pretty clear, cohesive message from the governor, from the president last night, from the governor's longtime friend, the vice president, Kamala Harris, from the former president, and from other big stars like Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, and Amy Klobuchar, all coming to the state to make essentially the same argument. Keep this governor, maintain the status quo, keep fighting the pandemic and trying to stave off the threat of wildfires and whatnot, or turn things over to a Trump-style Republican. There are Democrats around the rest of the country tonight who see that and go, that might work in my race. I may not be from as overwhelmingly a Democratic state as California, but there are elements of what the governor pulled off here that we should consider replicating across the country.
Taking some notes. Ed, I was curious, what are the optics from other areas? And you kind of answered that question, but even on the East Coast and Midwest, when they're seeing this recall election and the outcome, what message does that send?
Well, I think we're going to get another taste of this in a few weeks in Virginia. They and New Jersey are the only states that elect governors normally in an odd-numbered year. California jumped in kind of this year. And the Democratic candidate in that state has been making a similar anti-Trump argument, trying to tie his Republican opponent to the former president and saying, if you really want that kind of governing, go right ahead, but I am a more pragmatic kind of leader who can lead the state through the pandemic and through all the other crises that we're facing. And so if it works also in Virginia, making the argument against the former president and Republicans like him, again, I think that'll be another example that kind of messaging could potentially be enough to convince enough of Democratic voters to show up, and then maybe to convince enough independents to vote for them as well.
You know, Ed, we heard from John Cox, we heard from Kevin Faulconer, we're waiting to hear from Larry Elder, but the previous two had kind of the same message. You know, okay, we understand, we didn't win this thing, but they always say, we're going to be back, we're going to fight, and I'm sure Larry Elder might say the same thing, but is there something here that rings true where the Democrats in office should pay attention and say, you know what? There might be, there's a group of people out there who's very disenchanted.
Well, when you go to dinner at a luxury restaurant with your lobbyist friend and don't wear your mask after telling the rest of the state to do so, I think that's part of what sparked this, right?
Yep.
So it's essentially practice what you preach, and that's a very basic message for any political leader. Don't get caught doing what you're asking the public to, doing the opposite of what you're asking the public to do. And so that was, you know, certainly one lesson in this. And then, you know, I think hearing Gavin Faulconer say earlier tonight, I'm probably going to do this again, and the way to win statewide in California is a mathematical equation of addition, not subtraction, shows you that there's going to be a disagreement among Republicans, not just in California, but potentially across the country, that says we cannot afford to continue just appealing to our base and those that support the former president if we hope to win big elections. And, you know, Republican Party in California has obviously had this issue for a long time, but it could be, as it often is, a signal of what could happen in the rest of the country, because as you guys well know,
Yeah, Ed,
politics in California sometimes foreshadows what happens across the rest of the country.
True, and I was going to say this was a really passionate recall. For those who wanted him recalled, when you interviewed them, some of them would break down in tears with their reasonings, and I wonder if that, you contrast that to prior recalls in 2003. Maybe there was anger then, but there was some real emotion.
We interviewed a woman tonight in our newscast who said, if he isn't defeated, I'm leaving the state.
He's out of here.
I mean, and she was serious. She wasn't making a joke.
Get ready, Texas. Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously, a percentage of people who are concerned and who might join that exodus of California residents to other states, but it wasn't enough, and there was clearly enough of a signal from other voters that no, we didn't want to do this yet, and even that argument of, well, if you don't like the guy, let's just finish this off and hold an election, a real one, next year. I'd be very curious if there's a way to measure what percentage of people who voted no against this did so, but aren't necessarily fans of the governor and are willing to look at other alternatives. And if there's a big enough number in that, he could face a competitive, or a fellow Democrat in that race next year. So not necessarily a sign that he's cleared the field.
That's a great point.
If in the coming days we look at the data, we look inside the numbers and realize that maybe there's still some vulnerability for him.
Yeah, and I think if we look at the outcome of this recall, and CBS News calling it earlier on, they were really looking at the trends as we were seeing on just kind of the graphs earlier on, and that's why it was called so soon, because at this point, the way the mail-in ballots were and the way things were heading county by county, he had it. And so as you can see on your screen right here, statewide results, 67% voting no to recall Governor Gavin Newsom, 33% yes, and of course we still do have the votes to tabulate of those that voted in person, and they did today, so we need to make sure that we count that obviously later on into the factor.